Okay, so I will begin our meeting and welcome everyone to June 10th. So it wanted to uh, put up on the opening slide here a notice that I hope everyone received via email that registration's open for the September conference. It's a virtual conference, right? For the 26th and the 27th. And so this means that, there's no travel involved, right? All the recordings all the presentations will be recorded, so they will be available afterwards. And it really is a great opportunity to pick up on continuing education hours, right? So that registration is open. Um, Aaron, do you have any comments you might want to share just regarding the conference? You want to pitch it?
Um, Recordings are available through the end of February this year instead of December, so you get extra months to watch those recordings. And The morning of the 26th, before the conference officially opens, will be the annual meeting of the State Foundation, and all Marston Gardeners are welcome to join us. It's open whether you are registered for the conference or not.
Very good. And so I don't have the website up here, but it's mglearns.org, correct?
Correct.
mglearns.org. Okay, so we're going to kick into today, and we have just a lot of information to get out, a lot of updates to share, and I'm still in the home and garden show mode, right? And so we're following up with Jeff Greene from Carnivorous Plants booth, as well as July we'll be joined by Dan Biscotter, who joined, I believe, the plant clinic, and he's going to share about his lost apple project happening over in Walla Walla. So Jeff, by the way, I have the question mark regarding today because he had a show in Fresno. So he's actually somewhere up the I-5 corridor and will call in at an appropriate time. So he and I texted this morning. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to visit with Jeff. Okay. Lots of calendar updates here. A quick reminder, June 1st was the deadline for the miners training, the online miners training. And Aaron, Wendy, any comments in terms of, folks that are recalcitrant or need to train or need to beg forgiveness and follow up?
I actually have requested an extension, so I think we're good. And I think that probably next week I just might do another online session. We've had a lot of people, which again, I missed some names, so people were like, "Oh, you forgot my name," but I apologize for that. So people that have taken the training, they let me know, but there are a few that haven't, so we'll hopefully catch them in the next week or so.
Okay. Um, Elizabeth, real quick, could you pass Dan the URL for today's meeting? He's having trouble logging in.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, thanks. And so to that point, then, is it if anyone hasn't taken this training, or if they're confused about what we're even talking about, reach out to Wendy and Aaron, okay, urgently, because this is important, right?
Yeah, you cannot, a volunteer cannot work in any of the events that might include children until they take that training, which is just about everything we do, even though some of the workshops and stuff are adults only. Most of them involve children as well.
Reminder also that our board meeting today, we meet as a board today at 1 o'clock. It's the same URL. This is the same URL. And so everyone is welcome to join, whether you're on the board or not. And also, Aaron, I believe you want to keep this link open after we conclude our official meeting this morning because you want to preview a presentation, correct?
Correct. Wendy and I are doing our first information center session for Greene School this weekend, and so we wanted to do a practice run. So everyone is welcome to join after this meeting to watch that. Just keep in mind it's our first time doing it fully through together, so
don't worry, it won't be recorded.
It'll be fine.
It's a dry run.
Yes.
And this Friday, your board meets, plus anyone who is interested, to join us at the Hoquiam Library for a 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock strategic planning work session. And Mike, do you want to have any preview to that and any focus in terms of our discussion on this Friday?
Well, we received a report from Vivian. She had compiled statistics, putting together everybody's reviews, and had picked out the top topics in there. And I don't have that in front of me, but congratulations to Vivian. That was a lot of work putting together everybody's information, categorizing it, and putting it in a sequence and easy to follow. And it's going to be a good meeting. So we're really looking forward to it. It's a brown bag event. So bring your own lunch and I'll have some water, drinks, and maybe some snacks. And looking forward to everybody for this, or one of our last strategic planning meetings.
Friday the 13th, an ominous date to do strategic planning. And a quick heads up then on Saturday, a composting and soils workshop in South Bend. Composting soils workshop in South Bend. There's other stuff happening, by the way. There's Greater Grays Harbor meeting. There's Coastal Grays Harbor meetings. There's other plant clinics happening in the month. So everybody make sure that you're focused on coming on this, coming to reading e-news and making sure where things are happening. And I wanted to do a special focus here on to the 17th, next Tuesday, right? Next Tuesday, this is an interpersonal engagement workshop being offered from noon till 2, actually, or noon to 3. I forget that maybe I got the dates wrong or right or wrong. Yeah, noon to
Kelly?
2, noon to 2. Yes,
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
yeah. The three is on a lot of the things that we put out because we're going to need some time to clean up the room afterwards.
There you go, because we're
And
dirty people. Yeah,
yeah, because we're really messy people, and yeah, no, we're good.
we're good. Okay, so we won't be messy.
No.
Um, Yeah, I'll come back to this when Dan's able to join us here, and it because I'd like him to pitch it a little bit further here, and say more about it. But it's very much encouraged to attend either in Monty at the this is the City Hall room, correct? It's the City Hall, yeah, room, and at the Owaco Community Room, and we'll zoom into that room there. Okay. So again, everybody's encouraged to come to learn how to play nice together. Okay. Other things happening, of course, moving ahead to July, and arguably July is not that far away. And the 19th, of course, is our tour and plant sale. And Barb posted in e-news a very comprehensive notice that I have posted here regarding preparations and for the plant sale that accompanies the tour. And Barb, you want to speak to that? You want to speak to your notes or comments here?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Um, yes, so hopefully I've covered everything in that. And also, I'm not sure if Katie has sent out an email, but she will be sending out an email that has the sign-up sheet also for the plant
And
sale.
she sent that out this morning.
Oh, wonderful.
It's in our inbox. Yes.
Absolutely wonderful. All righty. So, I've asked for the your you to start dropping off your plants. What did I put in there? I think it was Tuesday and Wednesday. And then, excuse me, starting with Tuesday, and then there will be a plant prep on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm getting some information and some feedback regarding what plants people have and that they are planning to donate. And I think at this point, I'm looking for people to donate, or excuse me, to volunteer for the sale. And I'd like to know if anybody has any questions.
I'll definitely report that we reached out to the Planter Box, a very important nursery that's very supportive of our programs here in Long Beach. And Teresa donated to us last week. I have 120 individual plants that she, as the nursery, found that she could not sell or she'd lost the tags for and so forth. So we'll be dividing and bringing up probably about 250 to 300 plants from here, Barbara.
Well, that sounds pretty darn good. That's wonderful. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that about the plant labels. So just as a reminder to make sure that on the plants that you donate, they do have the labels to all of our
So,
master gardeners.
so key point here, if you have any questions regarding July 19th and the plants here, reach out to Barbara. You know, her phone number and email is in e-news. It's on the slide right here. Note that this plant sale it's not only is it profitable for us, but it's very valuable for the folks that come by. They want to buy from us because they know we produce good material, and they know that we will offer quality material that is thoughtfully prepared for our climate. Hey Dan, I see you've joined us here, so I'd love to have you chat a little bit about next Tuesday, a week from today, and the workshops that will be happening simultaneously both in Montesano and in Owaco.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the Zoom snafu. My link wasn't working, and now I'm here. So thanks for those who helped me get on quick. I appreciate it. Yeah, I look forward to having many of you, hopefully all of you, join us in 1 week from today. We're going to be doing a quick workshop led by Tessa Colloran, who is our Mason County Master Gardener Coordinator, and I'll be assisting with that. We're going to be doing some hands-on learning, some socialization, and just some hands-on fun together as master gardeners. We picked up supplies this week, and so it's going to be some hands-on learning. Again, there's 2 spots, one in El Waco and one in Montesano. It's from noon until 1:30 or 2 o'clock. Parking is a little rough in Montesano, but there's lots of street parking in that area. We're going to be at the city hall there. Pizza and fun food would be available. A light lunch, drinks are provided. So again, food, fun, fellowship, hands-on learning, lots of opportunities to just kind of spend time together, and look forward to seeing many of you there.
You want to talk about the training itself and the skills that we hope to acquire or to enhance during the workshop?
We're going to be doing some interpersonal skills training, some perspectives, as well as learning what skills we have and what skills others have, and how to work on our interpersonal skills a little bit. That acceptance, understanding, and all done through hands-on activities. And you will get to leave with a plant as well.
Whoa.
So everyone loves that, right?
Find you incredibly significant, right? We can appreciate because I mean, obviously, our entire focus is to engage with the community and engage with everyone in the community, and that means engaging with, you know, thousands of individuals with their individual styles, right, and their communication practices, and norms, and biases, and inferences.
Thank you for having me on and sharing that. I hope to see many of you there. If you can make it, that'd be awesome. And again, 2 different spots for your convenience.
Okay. Okay, a couple of the calendar reminders as we push on. You know, this year, because of the way the calendar plays out, the Grays Harbor County Fair begins at the tail end of July, and flows into August. The Pacific County Fair, August 21 through 24th. So, you know, the fairs are upon us. These are huge opportunities for us as master gardeners to introduce who we are to the to the public, and to the thousands of people, truly the thousands of people that will visit the Elma Demo Garden, and will also come by and visit our booth in Menlo. So, any comments or thoughts from anyone regarding the fairs? And I don't believe we have a sign-up sheet yet for fair participation at Grays Harbor. Um, Nor it's still early, of course, even for Pacific County here. But any comments from anyone regarding fair participation and putting aside these dates? Okay, so get these dates on the calendar and go from there. Here's another reminder, of course, as we opened this morning about the conference coming up, and there's the registration URL for the actual confirmation. I believe early bird is through June or well into July in terms of the early bird fee for this. But it is
It puts it back a couple of weeks. So
so
it goes into July.
into July. But it would be encouraging for everyone just to take advantage of the cost savings to register now, and note that here's an easy way to clean up your continuing education hours for the year. These are important sessions hosted by master gardeners in the state. They're very relevant to what we all do, and it's a great opportunity to actually engage without having to travel and without having to have that extra expense. Okay, I wanted to get in some other other updates, other program updates, and reach out to some folks. I'd very much like to spend some time hearing from Terry and hearing from Sharon and other people involved in the Home and Garden Show. How did we do? Feedback and thoughts in terms of how we did monetarily wise as well as impact wise into the community. Terry, you have the floor.
Thank you. It was truly a great show. We had our attendance up from previous years. We had vendors filling the house. And as usual, we had a full house of volunteers. And I'm always amazed that everybody comes through and helps with this big event, because it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of coordination, and Robin and Rhonda, of course, do just a sensational job this year with the help of Janice Williams, putting our vendors in place and all the work that goes into that. So they really deserve a lot of credit. Midge put together a wonderful speaker program. I think that was pretty well attended this year. And we were lucky enough to get Cisco again, which always helps our Sunday attendance. So anyway, all those things were great. And I'm in the middle of putting together the report that we have to submit 30 days after the event to the Visitors Bureau for our grant. So thank you, Sharon, for getting all those numbers together. It looks like, according to her report, that we will, in the end, when we get our grant, probably make more than $20,000 this year, which is similar to what we made last year, which is truly remarkable. We sold, let's see, Kelly, can you remember? Did we sell 170, 6 planters this year? It was remarkable that we sold so many at the show this year. We sold probably half the number that we sold last year at the May planter sale. So we did just a remarkable job of catching up at the Home and Garden Show. Truly, truly amazing. So it was just a resounding success, and we got great feedback from our vendor survey, which was always good to hear. I mean, we hear a lot of that in person during the show, but then on the vendor surveys at the end, again, it supported what the general overall feeling was. Robin, do you want to expand on that at all?
You're doing a good job. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and the vendor surveys are always helpful. Mine are a little bit different than Rhonda's. I think the vendors on the garden side are always even a little bit more positive than the other side, because they're people. I mean, they're just, ma and pa vendors and stuff like that. But yeah, we only get good report on that side. Everybody loves it. In fact, a lot of the vendors want to move over to the garden side because they think it's more fun. The only thing that's ever said, and again this year, was that it's cold. And I'm always complaining that it's cold, and everybody's always telling me I'm crazy, but the vendors were cold. And so we need to work on making sure we get the heat on it earlier in the morning. And what else was, the speaker. Oh, the speaker, the overhead announcing speaker system. My vendors hate it. I guess it doesn't sound bad on the other side, on the home side, but on the garden side, it just irritates people. They can't understand what's being said. They just want it to stop.
Hey,
So,
Robin, can I
yeah.
add something on that on the speakers? The speakers in the center of the thing are pointed down or actually pointed out to the sides. So they create an echo and they hit the side walls and they come back. If the speakers were re-aimed down to the bottom, you wouldn't get the echo that we had at the Home and Garden show. So they need to re-aim those speakers.
Well, that's something we could bring up to the fair board when we go there to talk to them. We could mention it and see what they say.
One of the interesting little bits of information I heard from somebody, maybe it was you or maybe it was Rhonda, but our home side vendors are often satisfied just if they get only 5 referrals at the show. And I thought that was interesting that any leads they get that come from our show, they find to be a benefit, even though the number sounds kind of paltry, you know. But they all help them get future contacts for customers. So I thought that was very positive and good to hear, because we see a lot of activity on the garden side, of course, because there are lower priced items to buy. Home side is a little different because a lot of those are services. So I was really pleased to hear that that they see the positive impact on their business. And Kelly did a remarkable job of kind of an analysis of our zip code search on the economic impact. Do you want to do a little recap of that, Kelly?
It actually is interesting. So really credit really to Rhonda for tabulating all of the zip codes that are brought in by the folks who monitored the entry stations. So again, and by the way, this plays again to the big thank you for all the folks that contribute in many, many ways across the show. The greeters right at the doors are very instrumental in handing out those sheets, the little tags, the little tabs that ask for people to enter the raffle and the drawing, enter the drawing rather, and put in their address, particularly their zip code. And so it's fascinating to see how many folks come from the local area or how many folks come from outside of the 50-mile radius. And that is important to the Department of Commerce at the state level. People coming from outside of 50 miles, are noted by the Department of Commerce as being significant. They're coming for a purpose. They're coming here because of the event, and they typically spend more in the lodging, in food, in gas, overnight stays. And so we actually estimated that at the low end, right, you're pushing $450,000 or so in terms of the impact of this show onto the Grays Harbor economy. At the high end, you're pushing 750 to 800,000 dollars of impact, and this includes not just stuff that is sold or consumed at the show, but as Terry was just indicating, the leads that will result in future sales for vendors, as well as the brand recognition and the brand enhancement that folks at this show earn by being at the show. So it's a big deal what we do. And so, and again, it's just a big deal for all of our contributions, regardless whether we're baking cookies or whether we're sitting at the entrances, or whether we're selling or hosting the speakers, etc. So huge kudos for what we do relative to the impact of the community. So any other thoughts, comments, feedback on the show?
Kelly, I know that Aaron and you and Terry and people involved in the Home and Garden Show are putting the statistics and pictures and everything, a whole report together to share with Jennifer Markey, and then she's going to share it with the appropriate people at WSU, so we can really highlight what we are doing. So I'm excited about that.
And Sharon, you want to talk a little bit about the finances? I know we put some numbers in the overall numbers, but I was interested in terms of the comparison that you prepared regarding this year versus past years. And I'll do a quick note that I think because we didn't have choir to sell this year, this is probably why we were only equal to what we sold last year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we probably would have made more money if we'd had choir to sell also. But basically, what I have is like 4 years comparison. In 2022, we made about $11,000. I think this was this the first one we did after COVID?
Yes, that was the we had to cancel for 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. And so in 23, we made about $18,000. Last year, we made about $20,000, 20,500. And it looks like that's what we're going to get this year. So, kudos. This was really wonderful. It's a huge boost to our budget and a boost for us to be able to supply what's needed for the program. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I think it was good that we made the same as last year because before the show started, the garden side vendors were all saying the same thing. They'd been to shows earlier in the spring, and the shows weren't having a good attendance that they'd been to, and they weren't selling like they had in the past. And so several of them said to me, "This show's going to be," even one vendor said, "This show's going to be my make it or break it. Like if I don't do well, I'm going out. I'm going to go out of business." So they were really watching to see what was going to happen. Were they going to get much sales, and was there going to be a good attendance? And so it's really awesome to hear that our attendance was even up when a lot of the shows around us, the attendance was way down this year.
I think the other really positive thing that our show offers is all of our Master Gardener educational opportunities, whether it's the children's booth, plant clinic, the fact that we have a big Master Gardener presence the moment you walk into the show on the garden side. I just think that is such a service to the community that we need to remember, because this show supports not just the foundation, but it also supports our program.
Wendy, this is, as we compile the report and share this off to the state, we really ought to emphasize that, right? Is that not just do you have the formal clinics, the formal presentations, the children's program and so forth, but think about the individual engagements that we all as Master Gardeners had with the folks just walking through there, answering questions, picking up, oh, they say, oh, you're a Master Gardener. Let me ask you about this, or gee, let's talk about such and such. And then, of course, you've got Mike out there sharpening tools. So and so now we're doing weapons training, right? So we're at, we're actually, we're and it's a whole nother level.
Mhm.
Mike, again, thank you, by the way, for that. It clearly was an attraction. Those of you who obviously saw Mike out there sharpening clearly saw how compelling it was for people to come on up, and so it's become a fixture, Mike. Okay, anything else on the garden show? Okay. So other announcements, other comments from anyone regarding other calendar things happening, program notes that we need to be aware of, upcoming meetings of general interest for us.
Well, of course, we've got the garden tour. Are you bringing that up next?
Go ahead and bring that up, because I guess I don't have a special slide on that.
Okay, well, so our next big event is the garden tour, which is on July 19th. We have 4 gardens plus the Rose Garden that's next to the Polson Museum, which Gwendolyn Gates has taken on to manage and to really make it look beautiful. I was by there just yesterday, and roses are already in bloom. So it's a great feature on our garden tour. This is our first Hoquiam only garden tour since 2013. And so this is kind of a big event for the Hoquiam community. This garden tour doesn't involve a huge driving radius. It's all pretty concentrated. Three of the gardens are downtown, and plus the Polson Rose Garden, and the other garden is not far. It's just a few miles up Highway 101. So not a lot of driving once you get to Hoquiam on this tour. We need, of course, docents. So if you have time to be a docent on a morning or afternoon shift, can you please email or call me or Robin? Rhonda's on vacation, so we will happily put you down to be at one of the gardens. If you do volunteer to be a docent, or we also need, of course, help at the plant sale if you prefer to work the plant sale, which is also within the downtown radius of this garden tour at Barbara Porter's house. You get a free ticket to see the rest of the gardens, and they really are worth seeing because there's such a great range of size of gardens and style of gardens. And so as usual, you know, there's just a lot to enjoy on this and learn from on this tour. So that's about it. Soon the tickets will be out and the posters will be printed to begin the promotion, the official promotion for the garden tour.
And how will this, and Randy talks about the flyer / poster in the chat, Terry. So how do we want to make sure that those posters are distributed? I know that we're already distributing some of the rack cards that you've created down here.
Right. Well, there's some communities that have kind of our regular poster putter-uppers, like Elma and McCleary has Garnet, and a couple of other people, Brenda and, oh shoot, I'm blanking out on the third person, the very important third person.
Linda.
But, thank you. who do a remarkable job of putting up 70 posters plus in that area. We don't have an official community support group in Montesano and List, but Robin and several other people are always good about making sure that we have a presence there. Hoquiam, Barbara Porter, Gwendolyn, other Hoquiamites take care of that. So typically we don't put up posters until about a month before the tour when the tickets are done. And I'm working on the ticket right now. So as soon as the tickets are done, everybody gets alerted and the posters go up. So that's kind of how it works.
Stay tuned, and it's coming.
Yes, it's not quite a month ahead. So I work to deadlines, you know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, other comments, other questions, by the way, other program updates.
Yeah, I've got
yes,
one.
Gail, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to learn how to use my hand icon. But do we ever publicize this in a community event or anything in Olympia or areas beyond the counties?
We do. We have a couple of members who do post in some of the places we know about in the Olympia area. And now that Midge lives in Olympia, she's been really helpful getting more posters up in that area. And then we have another couple of members that are often in Olympia who also check out opportunities for doing that. The garden tour is not like the home and garden show where we get this nice grant that pays for our paid advertising and our printing. So our budget for advertising is much more modest.
No, I'm thinking public relations in terms of having a notice on their community bulletin boards or on their social media, because a lot of people come, you know, from those areas through here for a weekend at the beach, or they're going to Seabrook. So that would be a close hop for them. Yes.
Well, if you're aware of those opportunities, I can send you a JPEG of our preliminary postcard that you can send off to these public or these opportunities for those situations, which is
send it on.
Okay.
No
great.
promises, but I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
Hey, Terry, what are the hours of the garden tour? Because we have a double entry on the calendar and the times are off.
Well, the garden tour is actually 10 to 4. The plant sale is 9 to 5, so that people can hit the plant sale before or after they visit gardens. We did that a few years ago to help people divide their time. So
somehow we have two entries. One, they both say the garden tour and plant sale, and one says 9 to 5. The other one's 10 to 4. So I want to be able to correct the calendar so it illustrates the garden.
I think that they both, if anybody looks at the calendar, though, they know what they're looking at.
I don't.
Apparently you don't, so I can work on that.
But it says garden tour and plant sale, 2 entries, and they have 2 different times. And that's why I'm asking.
So Chris and Randy, why don't you take that offline? You can resolve some of the particulars there if you think we need to clarify the calendar times and the dates. Elizabeth, you have your hand up.
I do. Another option that we've used in the past, and this is that those of us who have attended the Southwest Cluster meetings, which are the counties surrounding us, Mason, Thurston, Lewis, etc., Clark, have let the program coordinators in those counties know about our upcoming events, and they put them out to their members. So those are the Master Gardener members. So that's another way that we've gotten our information out.
And I know what's been very effective down here is that putting these little rack cards that Terry prepares at all of our local nurseries. So people who are visiting the nurseries regularly and see the nurseries, clearly pick up on these things. And so that's an easy path, right, to get promotion out, is to put these rack cards where people, where we know plant interested people engage.
Also, Lori Birkin does a great job of getting press releases out to all of the newspapers that we typically advertise in for the home and garden show. For the home and garden show, even if we aren't advertising, doing paid advertising in these publications for the garden tour. So Lori always does a great job of making sure that all those newspapers are covered. And if you have Facebook groups that you are part of that are not just our official Master Gardener Facebook page, sending our little postcard to those groups is really helpful. Just spreading the word any way you can.
Okay. So just pushing on, just a reminder, of course, of, who we are. We meet today as a foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit foundation whose sole purpose is to support the Master Gardener program. And of course, the Master Gardener program is whom we are a part of. And the emphasis, of course, upon the science-based horticulture that is that is so significant, that is so significant with what we share. And this is what distinguishes us from folks that from other folks that are out there. So our board guiding the foundation, is led by Mike, and this is the board that will meet on Friday to talk through strategic planning and continue that series of strategic planning workshops that engages the foundation in our roles. Again, a reminder that everyone is welcome to join us this Friday for that session. Because of the huge size of our geography that's supported by the program at Pacific County and Greater Grays Harbor overall, we have 3 different regions led by Brenda, Lori, and Peggy across this 3,500 square miles, right? That is our area here. Jennifer leads our state as a state director, and Wendy and Aaron are here as our local coordinators. So it's a huge effort by a lot of people making all this happen. Couple quick notes from OSU, from Oregon State University, in terms of what should be happening in our gardens in June, right? Trellis time is what OSU is saying. It's the time to think about, how we're going to support all the climbers, in our vegetable gardens, right? And we be wary of, how we can support their stalks, with trellises and all kinds of designs, all kind of innovative designs, all kinds of materials can be used, of course, for the trellising. Pruning, it's appropriate after the blooms are done, right? Lilacs, forsythia, rhodies, and azaleas, Clearly, if you're looking to maintain size and shape on your rhodies and azaleas, we got to be thinking very thoughtful and very active about pruning. Fertilizing vegetables 1 month after plants emerge. 1 month after plants emerge is what's being recommended here. Thinning, of course. Raised beds, water sufficiently, as we were talking about before we started the meeting here this morning. We're already starting to water based upon how dry and how warm things have been. Lawn care, 1 pound, 1 pound, that's all. 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. And it's so easy to overdo that, as those of us who are in the Midwest and see all the patches of algae from the algal blooms resulting from over nitrogen. Pest monitoring. Blossoms begin and cucumbers will drop. That's a normal activity here. Root weevils, resistant varieties are being suggested by it. And there's actually WSU extension with respect to the particular varietals that could be controlled on many of your ornamentals, many of your activities. And of course, there's no substitute for a little mechanical work here in pulling, hoeing, and mulching. As much as that can be a drain on the gardening fun, it is so very necessary, right, in terms of controlling activities here. And then, of course, preventive pest management rather than reactive pest control. This is something very clearly where we can help in our outreach to the public, in noting that there's things you can do to manage pests in your gardens and in your lawn, your landscapes, ahead of having to jump over to the nursery or Home Depot and buy the latest spray that's going to be incredibly damaging to all the pollinators and other beneficial insects that we want to deal with. That PNW 550 publication on encouraging beneficial insects in your garden, very easy read and very helpful. And again, this is part of the evangelism we as master gardeners can create in the community to get this information out there to the public on preventive pest management methods. Okay. And then, of course, houseplants, time to get these houseplants outside. Let's move them outside. Let them and let them go. Let them and get a whole different flavor of activity, a whole different aspect of their growth activities. Soil testing, very important as we get into this, as we get into the summer. WSU and the OSU both have lists of labs recommended for soil testing. And of course, now we start talking about soil temperature. And I created this slide yesterday from looking at the WSU Ag Weather Net. And this was the first time, by the way, I've actually seen soil temperatures higher than air temperatures. And it has to do with the time of day, you're getting at this. But I mean, your soil temperatures now are actually getting up into levels that are very favorable for planting and germination outside. And of course, the hot weather we've had just this past week is going to improve these numbers even further. I haven't checked the numbers this morning, but I bet the soil temperatures, even at this 8-inch depth, have eked up a degree or two. And again, this information is readily available right on at WSU's Ag Weather Net. So bookmark that page, right, and it makes some things happen and make some and get into it. Okay. And so it is with great thrill that we're able to welcome Jeff Greene, who is I think you'll have to tell us, Jeff, where you'll have to unmute yourself and tell us where you are, somewhere between Fresno and Oregon, I think, right?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
We can.
You can. So I went to San Diego after Fresno, and right now I'm in beautiful Bakersfield, California. It's 91 degrees outside, so that's why you're probably seeing me in my van with the slight AC running. But yeah, I'm on my way home. I can't wait to get home. I'll take 81 instead of 91 any day. Yeah, it's dry here too.
Hey, so and so you're hauling your plants all up and down the coast in this heat?
Pretty much, yeah. We stop, excuse me, and we water every few days or every couple days, whatever it takes. I usually get them watered well enough to get down to wherever I'm going, and then we see how the weekend goes, and I water them over the weekend, and then I come home and water as needed. It's a busy time, but it's part of the maintenance of the plants and keeping them going while I'm here.
And so I've got up on the screen, Jeffrey, just a picture of you and your
Yes.
partner with the with the plants there, and just how about just a quick introduction? Because it was a thrill from all of us master gardeners visiting your booth at the Home and Garden Show. I'm interested in hearing how you got into this, right? And of course I want to hear your pitch in terms of why we want to have carnivorous plants in our landscapes, why each of us want to make sure that we're ensuring we've got a high complement of carnivorous plants growing around us.
So what first got me into it was just being a kid interested in them. The Kmart down the street from my house, ironically, in San Diego, California, used to sell these little plants in the little pot with a little deli cup thing on the top of it and everything, a little humidity chamber. And I was so fascinated by that. I'm still fascinated by plants in cups. I don't know why. It's some weird thing I got. They're interesting. It's really cool. And I had the Darlingtonia, the Cobra Lily that was up on the like stapled to the wall in a bag, and I was like, wow, that is so cool too. And it just took off from there. So here I am at age 59, still in love with these plants. So literally maybe 50 years of time has gone by between all that. And I don't know, somehow have made like some kind of living out of them, I guess you could say, supplementary income. Um, but I think the cool thing most of all about them is that they're just so fascinating, and I think the reason why everybody should have them is just for that reason alone. A lot of people think they can get them for pest control, etc. I mean, they also attract insects, so they're going to probably bring more around. In my yard, like you see all those traps in that picture right there. In my yard, every trap will get filled with insects, and there's still more bugs. So I don't know. It's just an endless supply. But having said that, it's pretty cool to go out and you'll hear buzzing and all kinds of sounds, and you'll go out and you'll look down the trap, and there'll be something in there that's trapped, and pretty cool. The plant's doing its job. um, so and a lot of times we'll see things down there like bumblebees and beneficial insects, and of course I'll stick a stick down there and get them out. But more often than not, they're pretty much done when they're down there.
So talk to us about the botany of these things. How do we have any sense of how these plants evolved, right, to consume
Hmm.
protein like this?
Well, they evolved in areas where the soil is very low in nutrients, mainly nitrogen. So that's where they developed the carnivory. It accounts for about 15% of their nutrients. So, to say they really need bugs, it's kind of a yes or no situation because without bugs, they will eventually decline over time for not getting that protein or whatever, that nitrogen from the bugs. Um, so I think that the irony in it too is that as growers, sometimes we fertilize them with maxi down the trap to get them to go. But aside from that, fertilizer is really not their best friend at all. Then they've developed that need for catching insects over time through evolution of living in the conditions that they live in.
And so are they mostly inside plants as a rule?
As a rule, I'd say it's about a 50-50 split on them. Like all those tall plants in the picture there with me and my wife, most of those are outside plants. Those are North American Sarracenia, and they grow in the southeastern United States, right out in the open. They're not really tropical. I'd say that's more subtropical and on up into even temperate zones for some of those plants. So they're perfect for outside. There's others that do very well inside that are under low light conditions or bright and direct light, like the Asian pitcher plants. Those come from the rainforest.
And
So go ahead.
so like anything, it's just a matter of understanding your species and understanding where you,
Ex-
yeah.
exactly. That's the main thing. Is like a lot of people will jump into these and they'll impulse buy one and not realize what they're getting themselves into. Because it's not something you can take home and treat like a house plant for the most part, even though we can sell them as a house plant for example. But like those Nepenthes, they can't dry out for as long as a lot of house plants, otherwise it'll be fatal. At the same time, you can't let them sit in water because they'll rot. So where they come from in the rainforest, they get a lot of drainage, a lot of rainfall, a lot of bright indirect light, no sunlight directly on them because of the canopy, for the most part. So in the direct sun, those plants suffer, where the ones that are standing up in front of my wife there and me in the picture, those love sun.
Just a quick, I imagine you stake those up then too, right? I mean, the stalks look strong, but still,
Yeah,
those are tall plants.
they are, yes, and they're pretty strong. And actually, when you touch them, when they're first coming out, they feel like they're a little soft, like newly emerging leaves on plants. But after they harden off, they're like almost like papyrus. You think they're delicate, and you touch them, you're like, well, that is really a tough, tough leaf. They do fall over in the wind. The wind blows them over. If they fill up with insects, they'll fall over. Sometimes the matter that's, I don't know if you want to call it rotting, or the breakdown process of the bugs in there, will create what we call like a heartburn spot on the pitcher, where it'll burn its way through and you'll see like browning and stuff. And sometimes the pitcher will get weak there and fall over. Um, but I mean, for aesthetics, absolutely, you can absolutely stake them, or you can put like little, I think those little things like you were talking about, like the beans and stuff, they're round. They have all the squares with the grate in them. We've used those for the Sarracenia so that the traps come up through there and they're held up.
So what is it the plant secretes to attract bugs?
It secretes a nice little nectar up underneath, at least from as far as the pitcher plants go. And I got this guy here. Right up under here, they'll secrete a nectar. And you'll see it. It's kind of shiny and sticky. It almost looks like slug trails. And it could be slug trails. Slugs do cruise around on there. But that nectar, the insects will come and drink it. And it's got sugars in it that kind of mess with their brain, similar to alcohol. So they mess around with it and they forget what they're doing and take a few wrong steps and they end up down that trap. It's really slippery too. And I guess their brains are just so scrambled they can't figure out what's going on by the time they're down there and they're done. And I think the predatory wasps, they go down in there. These things catch a lot of wasps, and they go down there, I think, to get the bugs and the food and the nectar, and it just becomes this big, huge cesspool of insect parts down there. It's pretty cool, actually. Kids get excited when you cut one open and you show them all the bugs in there. And that's one of the funnest things, is to see some kid's jaw drop, when you're cutting open a plant. Wow, look at that. Maggots, how cool. And it's like, then you have to understand the whole process of what's really going on in there. And I mean, you think, well, that's kind of gross. It kind of is, but it's also pretty interesting too, how that whole process works.
Now, the soil mixture that you have, you mentioned that, you don't want a rich soil mixture, but I mean,
Yes.
are you using the same soil mixture in everything we're looking at there?
For the most part, yeah. Some of the butterworts use a different, like a sandy soil that is a little more fast draining, and you can let them dry out. But for the most part, yeah, it's peat moss and perlite, 50-50, give or take a little. Some people use 100% pure peat. It's just because peat has no nutrients in it. It's just a perfect base. It's the base for the entire horticultural industry for soil. I used to mix soils in a nursery, and the first thing, get peat moss, and then add everything else to it, whether it's fertilizers or mulches or whatever to make houseplant mix. With these plants, you just stick with peat and perlite as a base, and that's it. It's fine for the most part for all of them. Some people are experimenting with the cocoa core, because of the whole controversy with digging up the peat bogs and stuff like that. And it's kind of controversial. So I get challenged a few times when I'm selling these plants and selling them in peat moss. But, I think that in general, the carnivorous plant community takes a small percentage of peat moss compared to the agricultural industry. But, it does look kind of crazy when I go buy 10 bags of peat moss, and you go, wow, that's a lot of peat moss. But, that's 2 seasons worth of peat moss for me. And that's some heavy transplanting. But aside from that, there's no real other soils that these plants can grow in. Some friends over in Europe are experimenting with other stuff with pretty good success. Because in England, I guess they're really, really heavy on the ban on peat moss. So I
But
don't
just
know.
to be clear, then your soil mixture is just perlite and peat moss. You have no
That's it.
soil in there at all, right?
None. None. I rip open the bag of peat moss and I put perlite in there with you. I get the perlite wet because it's dusty, and you just mix it all together and get the soil wet, and that's it. You can add a little sand. Some people do sand instead of perlite. Perlite can get kind of ugly floating around in the trays, where you have your plant sitting in there. It's like a bunch of perlite sticking to the pot, but you know, some people like it, some don't.
Jude,
I
you have your
don't.
hand up.
I do. I have a lot of questions, but I'll only ask one or two. How old can you have one of these pitcher plants? How long have you had one live?
Oh boy, I've probably had some in my recent collection that go back to at least 2012 when I really started getting back into this, and then I've had plants from before that. I mean, they're perennial, so they'll last forever. At least the Sarracenia, the one I was holding up, this guy here, it grows like on a rhizome, like an iris. It's the best way to describe this plant's growth habit. Its propagation habit's the same. You break the iris, or you break it apart like you do an iris in dormancy, and the chunks grow. So it's a perennial. This guy here is a forked sundew. It's
You have your,
also
by the way, heads up, you have your video is off, which is okay.
oh,
But I just,
okay.
yeah, okay.
Let me see what I can do
If
here.
you
Did
can
you
turn
say
your,
sundew? Did you just
There
say
we go.
sundew?
yeah,
Now
there we
maybe you
are.
can see my son. Okay,
Yep.
so we'll start again with this guy here with this pitch, the Sarracenia. So this plant here it grows like an iris. So this rhizome is exactly like an iris. Propagates the same way, just break it apart piece by piece, and it'll grow. And it again, like I was saying, it's a perennial. It'll keep growing forever. Same thing with this here. This sundew is a forked sundew. This is out of Australia, and it grows from a really woody rootstock, very similar to like a fern. The pot will fill up with like roots that are like solid, like wood, and it's a perennial too. Let's get to this guy, the Venus flytrap. Most people toss these at the end of the year because they think they die. They go dormant as well. They need a dormancy. Most of these plants really, really thrive on a dormancy. That's why in the Northwest, it's a really good climate for them. This plant will go dormant and it'll die off. It'll turn completely black and look like a pot of dirt. That's when most people throw them away. But it's mostly, for the most part, it's probably dormant at that time. And the best thing you can do, pop it out of the pot and see if you can find the bulb or rhizome, whatever they call it these days. It looks like bok choy down there, and that's your plant for next year. It's pretty simple, like doing tulips every year. You get them, dig them up, whatever you have to do. Replace the soil with this plant, and it'll be happy. But most people toss them; they treat them like an annual. It's truly a perennial, also. Almost all of the carnivorous plants are perennials. There's a couple that are annuals or biennials.
So you're to back to Jude's question, right? Your thought is these things last for years and years.
Oh yeah, yeah. They laugh. People laugh when they buy them from me. In 2 or 3 years, they come back and they talk about them like they're a pet, like they're a family member. Like they're given genders and they're given names and all kinds of stuff out there in the world. It's pretty funny. It's cool to see people care about them that much. Getting people just aware of something is really cool, and getting the younger generation, which was what we're happy to see that out in the carnivorous plant world, because most of the generational people out there are like in my age group. I'm in my late 50s, and it's great to see young people getting into this because they are the future of these plants. That little kid poking the fly trap, even if it's annoying, it's like, but if he gets to know that plant and really gets a curiosity, he'll become some big thing in agriculture or botany industry somewhere down the road. He may never have another carnivorous plant, but if you get him across that threshold and get him aware of it, if this plant has a place in the ecosystem somewhere, then they'll start to care more and more about that ecosystem and protect it and enjoy it. And that's probably the best gift. I mean, I'd love to honestly get rich off of this and be a millionaire, but I think I get more enriched when I see little kids and they just get real happy. And often I just bite the bullet on them when they're on the fence about buying a plant, and I'll just hand them a fly trap or something at these shows, and off they go with a big smile on their face. The plant's probably going to die, but you know what? If that seed gets planted in that 9-year-old kid like it did to me, I won. We won. The plant won. The world won, right? And that's the point.
Huge
And it's like
kudos.
that, not just with my favorite plants either, It's not just that, it's with all the plants out there. I mean, vegetables, I mean, everything. Just get them aware of it. I found a Facebook group in LA that I'm really intrigued by. I don't interact with them, but it's called Roots Down LA. And I saw their program, and it's just about teaching kids in the inner city how to garden, how to do stuff that they've never even had a clue on. And it's just, I mean, my friends down in San Diego gave a good presentation with these plants at an inner city school, and they were giving plants out to kids. And, we started seeing Facebook posts from the school with all these kids holding their plants all happy and stuff. And, at least these kids maybe have never going to even see a carnivorous plant in their life. At least they got a chance to see that.
Well, and they certainly aren't going to see. I've got their website up there now on the share here. Oh, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. And so um, hey, but just Jude, back to your questions here. This is fascinating. Some of the other questions. I want to make sure you get your questions out.
Yes.
I wanted to know if when you sell a plant to someone who hasn't had these before, do you recommend that they add insects to the plant on a regular basis?
That's a really good question. I get that asked all the time at the reptile show because reptiles are always on like a weekly feeding schedule. So does the plant need to be on a weekly feeding schedule? And I'm not aware that there's any kind of schedule for them. If they're left to their business outside for the most part, they'll catch bugs. Inside or somewhere where you maybe don't see them catching insects, you could drop a bug down like one of the tubes or stick it on one of the traps if you wanted to. Um, that's probably about the best fertilizer they can get. Some of the growers do fertilize the traps with Maxi seafood or seaweed food for them. But aside from that, I mean, they're going to catch stuff outside. They really will. I mean, we sit there at the reptile show and watch
Yeah,
flies move around.
I assume most of the ones you sell do end up as houseplants. And it's
Yeah,
marvelous that you are growing such beautiful plants. They were certainly the hit at the Home and Garden Show this spring.
yeah. A lot of them do end up as houseplants. I try to make sure people are aware of which ones those are better choices for. Like these Sarracenia pitcher plants, they really thrive outside. Um, and that's the best place for them.
But just to follow up on that, I mean, what about the dormancy period? I mean, here specifically think about here at the Northwest, right? So
Yeah.
we're basically the coastal area where, it's not going to get as cold as you are you're in Gresham, correct?
I'm in Scappoose.
Scappoose. So excuse me. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I've got friends that live up in Everett and even further north in Stanwood, and they leave their plants out year round. I mean, there's a chance a freeze will knock them off. I've had friends contact me and go, "Yeah, I lost, 40 plants. Oh boy, it was a tough winter," and that's, in the Seattle area, and I've had it happen in friends in Florida. It just depends, but for the most part, these guys, I just leave them outside. Just will all die back on you in the spring. It'll come right back, but it'll die back in the fall and winter. And most people, if they don't understand the plant cycle, that's when they think I killed it, and they just toss it. I equate it with when my irises die. This is it, or go dormant. Let's correct that. Go dormant. This goes dormant as well. Um, and then you just wait. It's the waiting game. It's, you have patience. You go through winter, your plant's outside and it comes back in the spring. You get to go out, check it out as it grows. And I mean, for the most part, they're fine. The fly trap even does well outside here. It'll freeze solid. As long as it doesn't freeze for too long of a period, this plant will be okay outside. If not, bring it inside for that extended freeze period, or you can use frost cloth for them. That'll insulate them for about 5 degrees or so per layer, from what I understand. So we do that too if we have to. But I have such a big amount of plants in the backyard, I'm not bringing them all in the house in the wintertime. I'd have to live outside.
And you've
So
got these. What about the precipitation? Because you obviously, you get a ton of precipitation in Scappoose, of course.
yes, absolutely. And the plants are out there in it. So, the trays will fill up with water. I take that as my annual flushing, where the soil gets flushed and everything. And I'll go out and I'll dump the trays in the springtime, and, Mother Nature fills them right back up for me. But they're fine out there in all that water. I guess there could be issues where some of the plants will die from rot, but for the most part, I'll find them sitting out there after being frozen in the pot. And, well, you probably are okay. And I pull the plant out and it's just healthy and healthy and healthy. So, I don't know. I know that they come from Florida, and I don't understand why something from Florida can take the freezes we have here. But again, that's something I'm not going to question nature. It's a dormancy period. The plant hardens off and it can handle it.
So that's a key point. Even some of the more tropical specimens that you have, right, do
Yes.
well up here.
Yeah, like the fly traps from Wilmington, North Carolina. So you can compare the weather patterns there to here. Well, here, not Bakersfield, but here as in the Northwest. Same thing with the Sarracenia, and see what the weather patterns are. And even then, the plants still do good regardless of whether they're the same or not. In fact, Sarracenia has a range from Florida all the way up into Canada. So it's a pretty varied plant as far as habitat goes, and cold tolerance.
Jude, back to you.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone is collecting any from the wild currently, like Darlingtonia in Oregon.
That's a really good question. There's some people have collected some in the wild. I have a friend who had to get a permit to collect some Darlingtonia from a couple of sites, and the U.S. Department of Interior gave her that permit only for educational purposes. So she planted them in a bog outside her carnivorous plant nursery and said, "Hey, let's look and enjoy these plants." And when she retired and moved, she dug them all up and gave them to her friends. I was one of them who was lucky enough. So I've got these plants that have location data like Florence, Oregon on them and Smith River. And I'm like, well, I'm going to grow these and enjoy them and give them away because, it's that ethics of selling things like that, and there's all kinds of stuff. At the same time, the threat of poaching in certain environments where plants can get wiped out in an instant is kind of scary too, where you think, oh, I just want to run in there and save something. We have that problem with the Sarracenia in the Southeast where Walmart's showing up, and there's this big, beautiful area of Sarracenia and they're going to bulldoze it and they won't let you come on and take any of the plants out because, it's private property.
painful.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people will contact you, hey, we're going to level this area. Can you come save these plants? It happens with all the different plants out there. It's when you get into the endangered species like the Sarracenia aureophila, where you can probably get a pretty good roadblock. But the Darlingtonia, it's so widespread. It's weirdly that it's kind of endangered, but at the same time, it's found in such locations. If you could go in there and poach a plant, have fun. You're not getting out. It's where it grows. Um, So, but
How can
that's not to encourage poaching either. Say, well, there's an abundant amount of it, go get it. Where there's an abundance of plants like that, there's always somewhere where they once were that's gone. In fact, those plants from Kmart, I think we can circle back to that because the nursery that had those was based in San Fernando Valley, California, far from Darlingtonia. And way back in the day when we had dial phones, my wife in the picture there with my current girlfriend at the time was her. And she's like picked up the phone and called that wholesale nursery and said, hey, can we come get some? And do you have a mother plant? Because we thought you had a mother plant that they were picking these thousands of plants off at that time. Mind you, this was back in the 70s when they had started this, and in the 80s when she called them. And they said, oh, no, we get them from a person in Coos Bay, Oregon, that digs them up and ships them to us. So I mean, if you have a private property, you can go do that on your own property, but it just makes you wonder where these plants were coming out of at that point. With nobody saying, I'm going to save a few and grow out this particular plant and see, maybe we need to reintroduce it. And that plant's so prolific. It grows like a weed for me. There's really no point to dig up a bunch of them. Once you got one, you're going to have 100. It just grows so prolifically in the Northwest. So it's kind of sad to see people doing that. And I've been on hikes before where I've seen the plant pulled out of areas and, laying on the trail. And it's like, geez, people, I know there's 1,000 plants down this hillside, but come on. There's so much available in cultivation. You can pick up the phone and, I mean, it costs you $100 for a plant from California carnivores, but that's better than going and yanking it out of the wild.
So how do we get your stuff? And because obviously we've seen you at the show, but I mean,
Yes.
is it do you mail order or should we plan do we need a caravan down to your place?
We can figure something out about that. I'm on tour, I guess you could say, with all these shows that I do. I've been gradually moving away from the reptile show circuit because I've noticed that the gardening circuit is a lot more fun in the springtime, and a lot more predictable. The plants are going to go home to a good family. No offense towards the reptile folks. That's mostly impulse buys, which gets challenging at times to get people over that. But I mean, I do come up often to shows up there. I'd be happy to. I don't know if you guys have any more plant events scheduled for the summer, even single day things. I can make a day trip up or whatever. I do still sell stuff online. Right now, it's probably getting to that time where I don't like to ship stuff because of the heat. People have asked me, will you ship me Darlingtonia? I'm in Alabama.
Did you do the whole lawn?
Yeah.
Wow.
Could I do the what? Oh,
I muted. Keep going, Jeff.
I didn't know if
I
that was a
appreciate the
question
fact
for me.
No, I think it was okay. I think it was just this the Zoom protocol, of course, is some people forget to mute themselves, right? When
Yeah.
they get
I think I did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so and that's the thing is I'm a little nervous about shipping some of these plants. I got some I need to ship to Florida, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it till next year. I'm just concerned about the safety of the plants. And the irony is that we only ship plants ground via slow snail mail. Nobody's willing to spend $100 to overnight a plant to Florida. Which ironically, when they buy like a bird or a snake, they'll $20 animal, they'll spend $100 to overnight it. It's just that difference between an animal and a plant. So I got to be really careful about shipping. I'm watching time in transit and all that stuff. So
Well, the
that
key
gets
point
kind
is
of
that even in Scappoose, you're not that far away. You really aren't.
Right.
So there's really an
Right.
opportunity for us to engage. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's not that far for shipping as long as it's not something that's going to go to Kentucky to a base and then back to Washington. We won't have any issues with weather. But aside from that, I think the time in transit challenges me in the summertime with shipping due to the heat.
Terry, you have your hand up.
Yes, I bought one of your larger pitcher plants at the
Yes.
Home and Garden Show, and brought my grandsons over to check out your whole collection during the show.
Uh-huh.
I put it in the middle of my small mucky pond that hosts a lot of frogs, and one of the many of the frogs compete over who's going to sit on this new island in the pond, which is pretty entertaining. But now the grandsons have a naming contest. They're going to name the island. And because we call the pond Waldo Pond, because you never know how many frogs are going to be in there. So the minute they come to visit, they run over to the pond and count the frogs. So Waldo Pond is going to have an island for featuring your beautiful plant, which just glows out there in the sunshine in the middle of the pond.
That's great.
So Terry, that's a key point. It's growing very successfully in your coastal environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
In full sun, right?
Yes, full
Is it
sun.
protected from the wind and so forth? Is it the
Well, a little bit. The pond, of course, has a rock border, so it sits a little lower. The water sits a little lower than, the actual ground. So it is a little more protected from wind. I would say it's quite protected, actually, because I never see the plants actually blowing. And we've actually seen flies land on the pitcher part of the plant. So we're seeing it do its job, attracting bugs.
And Jeff, to that point, I mean, we see the container size in which you're selling the plants. Do you recommend increasing that container size over the years? I mean, how much will the root or the rhizome, the tuber grow over the years? Oh, we might have lost him. Yep. We'll see if he can make it back. The connection in Baker. Jeffrey, you're still there. You're just on mute. Oh, wait.
I think we got cut off.
Yeah, okay, you're back here. Very
I'm
good.
back, yeah. So back to the island. Yes. See, so I think that's what's cool about these plants is they end up almost becoming a family member in a way, and they create an environment in your yard it draws in all the local wildlife. I found 2 or 3 different kinds of frogs. I don't even know what they were, and I'm chasing them around in the yard trying to catch them because we got a local guy who wants to have population counts of amphibians, and I'm like, I don't know what that was, but it wasn't a bullfrog and it wasn't a chorus frog. So yeah, they create a really cool environment, and you'll see like the frogs will hang out inside these pitchers and just wait to catch prey. They create a whole like I don't know, it's like plant TV in the yard. You can just sit out there and watch, and it's pretty cool. I've had my own son drag me out in the yard. Come on, Dad, when he was a little toddler, and we go out to one of these plants and it's buzzing away, and I look down there and there's a moth. He's found a moth in one of the pitchers out of all the plants out there, and he's just so happy with it.
Jeff, the question I was asking was with respect to the size of the container. So when the plants over time, do they need a larger container?
Yes. Yes, the rhizome will crawl all around in the pot like an iris does, and they'll actually break out of the pot eventually. So they do need a bigger pot. Yeah, for sure. And that's the time when it's a good time to clean up the rhizome and strip off any of the old garbage that's on there from the old leaves and clean it out real good and divide it if you want, or just replant it and have a bigger plant the following year.
But it's not necessary to prune or to deadhead it. You're saying, when it goes into dormancy, just let it go.
Yeah, just cut off the traps and leave it be, and it'll sprout out of the new crowns in the following springtime. Yeah, that's really all you have to do. And even if it's in a too small of a pot, the plants will come back pretty well. They're pretty resilient. So, I mean, it's nice to give them room to cruise around. Like you can see, like way over here on this one is another crown way far away from the main rhizome, but they will pop up all through the pot because the rhizome's spreading all over the place.
Terry, you have your hand back up.
The one I got from you is in, I'm not sure if it's a 2 or 3 gallon size nursery pot.
Yes.
How soon should I have to divide that and repot it?
Is it gotten to the edge of the pot yet? Are some of the like leaf clusters coming up near the edge?
Not outside the top of the pot. Would those be coming out the bottom, out the hole?
They'd be like new, like the plant would be throwing up new growth point, like near the edge of the pot or the rim of the pot. That would tell me that the rhizome is getting near the edge of the pot. I mean, you can divide it whenever you want, but when you see like it's sprouting like this crown right here on this plant, if it were closer or even up against the pot, I would say at that point it's definitely time to repot it because it'll hit the pot and it'll do like a 90-degree turn and try to crawl that way, and it'll still throw up traps and you'll still see them coming up around the edge of the pot. But it's when it's time the plant has made it to the edge of the pot and it's time to get it a new home.
You need to turn your video back on, Jeff.
Okay.
And what time of year is best? When it's dormant or anytime?
When it's dormant, it's the best time.
Okay.
And that's in the winter. I mean, anytime probably after November, you'll see the traps will start to die back on you and start to crash. And they may die all the way down to the rhizome or maybe halfway down. Some of them even keep the traps nice and beautiful all winter long. But that's when it's time to do the divisions. Transplant, you can do it for the most part any time of year. I just prefer to do everything when they're dormant. It's just a quick one and done thing. The plant's, cleaned up and repotted and either divided and whatever, ready to go. And you just break it apart like you would an iris. As long as each piece has roots on it, it should grow. The theory is it should grow. And for the most part, they do. They're very resilient.
Coming back to the soil medium, because the peat moss, of course, is naturally acidic
Yes.
versus coir that is a pH neutral. Do these prefer the acidic peat
They do.
moss?
They seem to prefer it. And I don't know if the coir people are talking about how they're having to rinse the salts out of it or something 2 or 3 times. Maybe that's just not an economically viable thing for the carnivorous plant community to look at right now. I don't know. But then again, if they cut us off from peat moss, we'll have to figure something else out.
Well, I think it would be good for peat moss for at least here in the States for quite some time here.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Jude, you have your hand up. Jude, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yay.
Good, because I want to ask about the flower, which nobody's been asking about at all. The leaf is so fascinating. Do you ever collect seeds from your plants?
I have so many plants I don't, but it's a fun thing to do. You can do it. It's pretty easy. You'll see the seed pod will get really big and swollen. After a while, they'll start to turn brown and crack. Then you just have to, well, we put them into stratification for about 45 days. I've found that, when the plant sits outside in the fall and winter, and that's just me with the way I've done any of the seeds, I just go out and harvest them in the springtime and assume that they've been under strat because of nature. But when you control breed these and cross them, you actually put the seeds in the fridge for a little while to make sure they germinate. But that's a controlled breeding, and you want to have those seedlings. Where I haven't quite done a whole lot of that right now. But yeah, you can pretty easily germinate them. They germinate really easy. In fact, they'll pop up all the time, little seedlings in these pots from where the seed pods have cracked and dropped seeds.
Great. That's one. From a time when botanists were having difficulty or impossible to grow these things, especially all the small ones that you have. This is fascinating.
Yes.
You're stratifying them in the backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I go out and I just pop the seed pod and crush it onto a pot, and that same season they will sprout. And I'm like, well, I didn't have to put them in the fridge. And all my friends back east in Florida are like laying them out on towels and getting them wet and folding them up and putting them in the fridge for like 45 days. And I guess if I crossbred some of these plants that I really wanted to make sure they germinated, I would probably do that too. But I don't know.
But you're saying so even in Scappoose, you're getting enough cold weather stratification.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
I find that very surprising given how mild things are, but I guess, okay.
It seems to work for these guys. So, maybe I'm not measuring like my germination rate, and maybe that's some real numbers there where, 300 seeds. Yeah, but you're only having 30 or 40. Whereas the guy who's taking those 300 seeds and putting them in the fridge is getting, 100% germination rate. But, again, that's just me not focusing on controlled breeding and, creating my own hybrids and making sure everything's good.
Still, it's testament also to the robustness of the material you're producing, right? The fact that, the fact that there's a great confidence in us as buyers, as purchasers, right? That, this stuff will work in our environment here. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it too is going to be division. So dividing these plants, you're just replicating the same plant over and over. It's just a piece of the main plant. So if this plant's resilient and I break a piece off of it and it grows into another plant, it's going to have the same resiliency. Where the seedlings, we can tell, where we'll see some out of 300, you can tell these are all the strongest ones that are reaching more for the light than the others. And generally that's when they start culling out, when they're looking for specific traits. Although I've seen plants get cold and I'm like, I don't even know why that plant's being cold. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous plant, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder when it comes to some of these things. And some people will walk away from a green plant and say, it's a green plant, I'll take a red one. And other people will look at the red one and go, I don't even like that. I want the green one. So you just never know. You never know.
Now, Terry mentioned how she's got your plan as a centerpiece of of Waldo Pond Waldo here. But are there other companion plants or companion placements that you would recommend in terms of how should we place your material in the landscape?
So the other companion plants, being that these plants have to stay potted, that kind of makes it a little challenging. Like they can't just drop into like, your rhodey garden or whatever into the soil. But however, you can put where your pool or pond or whatever it is, where your reservoir is for your plants, you can put that in that kind of an ecosystem. Um, for companion plants in the soil, a lot of the sundews that sprout up, I equate those as companion plants. They pop up naturally from seed. There's also some bog lilies and things like that you can get for these guys that are really good companion plants. Those do grow in the southeast with the Sarracenia, but they seem to do okay here in the northwest. I think it's Lilium Catesbei. There's a few others out there. One thing I did find at a nursery called Echo Valley Natives, and it's down in Sandy, Oregon. You got to check it out. They have these lilies called Vollmer's lilies. I don't know if they're really companions to like the Darlingtonia, but I think they might be native to the Northern California region. They're just the coolest little lily. It's little orange flower. It's just gorgeous. And I think, I mean, they're right out there with my carnivorous plants. I don't know if it's just association that I've got them out there or what, but I mean, those I find to be really nice plants too.
And I would think the color, I guess, would also attract more insects. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
anything that's blossoming and blooming, right,
Yep.
that's going to attract insects to feed these guys.
Yes, yes. And I don't know if you notice, like the Sarracenia, they throw their flower up long before the traps come up so they don't catch their pollinator or put the flower far away from the trap to keep the pollinator hopefully from coming to the trap, or at least maybe after the pollination's done, then they can go to the trap. It's pretty sinister.
That's fascinating. That's a
Isn't
fascinating
it?
evolutionary story. Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, some people will come to me and go, I've grown my Sarracenia inside under lights, for 3 years. I'm like, that's unheard of. But, things happen. There's anomalies in the systems and stuff like that. And I'm like, if it's working for you, it's working. Um, but for the most part, yeah, these like to be outside, this particular plant. But again, we find where things adapt in weird ways. And, I don't know. I don't
So
question it anymore.
so to keep track of you, right, we should be checking on your Facebook or your Instagram in terms of
Yes.
where you're going to be next.
Yes. Like right now for the rest of June, I'm actually a Californian for June. I live in California for the most part for this month. I go home and then next Saturday, well, this coming Saturday rather, I have a big carnivorous plant show and sale in the Bay Area at Alameda, California. It's the Bay Area Carnivorous Plant Society. It's like the biggest group in the country and their annual show and sales this weekend. So I'm gonna go home, pack a bunch of Darlingtonia and stuff and bring it back down. And then I go to San Jose and Sacramento the following weekend and then LA the following weekend, but I'll be back up in the Puyallup area in the middle of July at a reptile show. But aside from all of those, I'd like to just divert away from any of those and maybe just, I don't know if you guys have any events coming up or, I mean, I even make a day trip if you have a meeting on the weekend or something. I don't know, but it'd be kind of fun to come just bring some plants and hang out and chat and talk more about them.
Terry, we ought to talk about the July garden tour.
Yeah, Terry and I are just talking about that on our phones. What are you doing on the 19th of July?
Let me see. I'd have to look at my schedule. I'm not too sure yet. I know one weekend I'm in Puyallup. I'll have to look. There's another weekend or another Saturday in July. I think I'm in Klatskanai. Hope I pronounced that right. But
Well,
I can see.
we can push an email out to you, Jeff, with the with the date here, and it'd be super fun to have
Yes.
you join us up here, and that would
Yeah.
be in Hoquiam, and
Oh, okay.
so it's not that far, and
Yeah.
it's the Aberdeen Hoquiam area, and
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity for a day.
Yeah. Yeah. I know in July there was somebody who was inviting me to some oddities reptile expo in Vallejo, California, but I don't know. Like I said, I've been leaving reptile events for the garden events seem to be a little more productive for me, and fun too. And plus Vallejo in July is not going to be, it'll be hot. I'd rather come up there where, it's Washington hot, where we go hang out in the gardens or whatever, that sounds like a fun day, actually. It really does. So.
Peggy, you have your hand up.
I do. Do you do presentations for elementary school children?
I've done a few here and there. I could probably pull something off though. That'd be a lot of fun.
We have a real small school here, but we're trying to put together a whole program for the elementary school.
Oh, wow. Okay. How many kids?
There's 6 grades with maybe 25 to 30 kids per grade.
Okay. Yeah, that's about
So,
the size of my son's schools. I think 8 grades and about 25 kids per class.
okay.
Yeah. It's a nice little
In
charter
St. Louis,
school. I
huh?
really like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sylvia Island is where he goes.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, I could probably put something together like that. Are your kids out of school now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they get out the 12th.
The
So,
12th. Yeah.
but we're trying to put something together for next year. They've got a greenhouse that's never been used, and just would love to be able to. I know they'd love to see your plants.
Oh, that would be a lot of fun. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, September, I could maybe pull something off. I think that a lot of the plants are still growing very well then. It's challenging because it's like the plant's best season is anywhere from like May to September, October. So when school's out, but that might work out to my benefit with my 13-year-old when I need help in the yard. But I mean, aside from that, I'd love to absolutely come talk to the kids. Yeah. Yeah. Any of them that
Awesome.
we can get into these plants or any plants in general and just give them a good day. That'll be a good thing. We know they'll all go home and talk to their parents about what they did in school that day, that they found
Oh,
this
yeah.
cool bug-eating plant. And yeah,
Now,
September might be good for that because the pictures will be full of nasty bugs and we can pull out some bugs and see what's in there.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, that sounds like fun. Where is this school in
I'm
where
in
is it?
Ocean Shores.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that shouldn't be an
So,
issue. Yeah.
so I put Jeff, I've got your email, your Facebook, and your Instagram in the chat, right?
Okay.
Is there
Perfect.
any other contact vehicles that you would prefer?
No, those will be fine.
Yeah. And
Unless
it,
you have any suggestions, like you're
no, I'm
nudging me.
good because you
Give
and
me
I
your
can,
phone number, Jeff.
you and
I
I
mean, I
connect.
will if that helps. I can send you my phone number too. But yeah, I'd like to actually. Yeah, this would be a lot of fun. I think. Yeah.
oh, perfect. We could incorporate it into our regular meetings out here. So we'll
Yeah.
keep you busy. Would be
Keep me
awesome.
busy. That's perfect.
Thank
I
you.
need to be kept busy. Keep me on task.
Other questions and comments for Jeff before he melts in Bakersfield?
We're at 91. Hey, I'm in the van, but yeah.
It was 91 here, Jeff,
Oh
yesterday, so
boy.
it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is Robin. I just want to tell you that after the garden show, I had so many people come up to me or even call me and say, can I have the number of that guy that was there with the carnivorous plants? A lot of people commented on your booth.
That's
Um,
awesome.
they're pretty excited about it. In fact, one person was telling me this weekend, I want to get a hold of that guy because I want to get some of his carnivorous plants for indoor. And I said, I think they're mostly outdoor. So maybe I'm wrong, but
There's some for indoor. We can work on that. There's
the
just,
little tiny, I know I got one of the little sundews from my
yes.
kitchen window, but
Well, we
anyway,
can totally figure something out for anybody. Yeah.
well, if you came up on the 19th, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Let me look at my calendar and send me the info on that. And yeah, I think that sounds like fun.
We'll reach out. Other questions, other comments for Jeff? This has been of huge value, Jeff, really, and just a lot of fun, right? Because again, what you're doing, obviously, you can appreciate is just yes, it's odd to us the fact that you're going to be together with your people, this coming weekend. By the way,
Yes.
how many peeps are there coming to that conference? I'm curious.
Oh,
There's
it's the craziest 5-hour sale that I deal with every year. I get to see some of my plant friends from the industry, but it's like mayhem because you have to set up and there's like time to talk in passing, and then a crowd just knocks.
oh, frozen in Bakersfield. We'll see if he jumps back in. But I want to make sure that folks see in the chat, he's got an email, he's got a Facebook page, and and the Instagram contact there. And he's been I found him very accessible on his from his direct messaging on Facebook. So have no hesitation to reach out and to engage with him regarding this. Other questions or comments regarding carnivorous plants from anyone, just in terms of what we've heard here today and shared? Other thoughts?
I'm muted. May I say something?
Please.
These plants are able to live in an area where other plants would not be able to live. That's the real importance of them, I think, that they've devised this way of getting the nitrogen that they need. from insects rather than from the soil.
And to that point, I'm actually fascinated by what the physiology of the plant is, how it actually, this structure chemically of what the foliage and the stalks are having to go through. Because there does appear to be some photosynthesis, going on,
Yes, yeah, they totally photosynthesize. That's where they get a good amount of their nutrients from.
Wow.
So they just developed the carnivory to complement the 15% or so that they don't get from lack of nitrogen. But a lot of them, and I've cut most of the leaves off, like on this Sarracenia, they'll grow that. That's called a phalodia. It's a non-carnivorous leaf, and they'll throw these up randomly over the course of the year, especially at the end of the year when the insect populations dwindle. That's for photosynthesis to get nutrients until springtime. And I've seen them throw up mostly phalodia during the year, and then the following year throw up pitchers. So I don't know what kind of cycle is going on there, whether the plant doesn't pitcher if it doesn't need nutrients. I don't know.
So a biannual, process going on some places.
In some places, yeah, yeah. Where you look at the plant and go, well, that's not the plant I bought last year. Where are all the pictures? And then the following year, it just goes crazy. So,
Well, while you're at it, if I could ask another question, is there any authority, a book, or anything that we could consult, or a website even?
yes,
To
go.
get real information.
So, the book that we always push to people is called The Savage Garden. It's by Peter D'Amato. He was the owner of California Carnivores down in Sebastopol, California. He passed away about a year ago. His protege Damon has taken on the nursery, but they're like one of the foremost authorities on writing, for information on these guys. That book is fantastic. You can also check Sarracenia Northwest's website. They have a lot of care info on their website for the plants that they sell. A lot of good information. So I've gone to them too. They're my friends, Jeff and Jacob. And aside from that, you can also do Google. You can Google a lot of stuff and get a lot of good info there too. I prefer to talk to the grower myself personally, but that's because a lot of them are my friends and I like to pick their brains. Um, you know, but yeah,
Like
Savage Garden is a good book.
Yeah, it looks like they've got a special here. 30 units only for $531. Yeah.
Oh wow, fantastic! Let's do it. Again, I got that book. I mean, I don't know if we buy it because Peter's an icon, in the industry, but it's a really good book on a lot of good information on it. But again, if you know your plant, you can probably look that up individually just by, pull the tag up, like on this guy here. It says Drosera multifida, no, Drosera dichotoma. So, I mean, you can probably get directed right to Sarracenia Northwest's website or a bunch of general information from growers on this plant, specialists that grow this plant particularly, and tons, probably way more information than you could ever imagine. So, and that's what I always encourage folks to do, especially if they're like, picking my brain on how on this plant. Well, you can get all the information you can from me, but then also go Google the scientific name.
Other questions, other comments for Jeff? This has been great, for sure. And Jeff, I really appreciate you, stopping from your travel day, right, to drop off and join us here. Because not only
I'm a little embarrassed by being unprepared, I think, and I'm just not
you're
admitting
great.
it.
This is
I'm
super.
not flipping through, giving you guys photos and all this stuff. And I really would like, I mean, maybe that's why I like the in-person thing where we can just sit down and poke the plants, right there in the room together and check them out and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess this is second best to that.
I think
it's
it's pretty cool. You've been able to do show and tell from your van.
Oh, I know. I've done sales from the van. It's kind of seedy sometimes, but hey, you know what? We love our plants, and nobody's going to bug us in some Wendy's parking lot in wherever we are if we just do this plant thing real quick. They'll think we're weird and leave us alone, which is perfect.
So I'm just in summary then. So you expect how many people are going to show up for the plant festival this weekend? I'm just curious. There's a whole community around this.
Yes, yeah, I would guess probably about 1,000 people will come through there in that 5 hour time, maybe 2,000. It's well advertised. This group's been around for a while. The Carnivorous Plant Society there in the Bay Area. It's very well known. I know friends from LA are going to come up. A friend from San Diego is going to come up. I'm going down there from Scappoose. A friend's going down there from Stanwood, Washington. So it's a pretty big deal. They had an ICPS International Carnivorous Plant Society conference in 2018, and this is where it was, and it was just really cool. All these people from all over the world showed up. People you just saw on Facebook. You're like, I know you, and suddenly you're talking to some royalty of some guy who does carnivorous plants in Europe, and wow, it was quite a fun thing. This won't be that much fun, but it'll be pretty close.
Well, it's they've got a great website up here as I'm sharing
Yes.
right now. So it just,
Yes.
there's so to your point, this is you're not so oddball as people might first think, right? This
Right,
is
right. It used to be that way in the reptile industry where you got a snake, you're different. And now it's like, everybody's got snakes and tarantulas. And the joke is like with these plants, you get one, then you get two, then you have 30. Well, in the reptile and amphibian world, it's the same way. I don't know if we're all like secret hoarders of our loves like that or not, but that's just what happens. You see cactus people, they have a whole bunch of cacti and it's what brings people joy. So, we're hoping it's a little more mainstream. The more mainstream things like that are, whether like things like snakes to people are icky, but the more mainstream that we get into that, more we understand things like that, the more we'll learn that, well, maybe, we don't really want to hurt that rattlesnake out there in that environment. If we can just leave each other alone, like we don't exist, we can leave each other alone and they have their role, I have my role. I think education and everything brings a little more of this stuff mainstream to where we can understand it better.
Jeff, thank you again so much for
Oh,
joining us here today. This has again been very illuminating. It's definitely, you can appreciate something as master gardeners we don't spend a lot of time training on, so you've really opened our eyes and our understanding to a whole different level of flora, right?
thank you. Appreciate that.
That sounds like it'd be fun to add to, and as Terry has just given a real example to, it becomes a great accent point into our landscapes.
Yes. Yes, and some of these plants, if they catch the eyes of kids, where kids might think I don't want to work on plants, that I'm not cool with my friend circle if I have plants, but then you throw a Venus flytrap out there, and all of a sudden everybody's cool, and learning more about them, and then they realize there's more and more and more plants like that, and wow, gee, plants aren't so nerdy after all; they're kind of actually pretty cool. So, and the more cool we think things are, the more involved we'll get in them.
Okay. I want to hugely thank Jeff for joining us here today and making the effort here. I'm going to
Sure.
go ahead and stop the recording here,
Okay.
guys, and I'm going to go ahead and